My name is John Steytler. I would like always to introduce myself by saying that I'm a proud father of Rolf Steytler. I'm married to Lillian Steytler. I love my family and I have studied in Namibia. I did my basic studies in Namibia and I've also studied in the UK, in Germany, and I did my PhD in KwaZulu-Natal. And I've worked internationally and I've worked in public sectors, in the private sector, and also with state-owned enterprises. My recent assignment that I left was to be the Chief Executive Officer of the Development Bank of Namibia. But something that I like to take pride in always is to say that I was fortunate enough that I was called to start the Namibia Statistics Agency, which was established in 2011. I played a key role in developing the act of the agency, and then I was also fortunate enough to be appointed as the first Statistician General of the Namibia Statistics Agency. So I think this is a very, very good question. There are maybe 3 or 4 things that I want to say. Firstly, people have seen that some companies have stopped drilling, but that's actually a good thing, because the reason they've stopped drilling is because we have now concluded, and it's very important, we've concluded that Namibia has a working oil system. So around the coast of Namibia, and this is offshore, about 250 kilometers inside of the sea, there's a lot of oil. Just today, or I think it was yesterday because I read it today, one company confirmed again that they have discovered oil in Namibia. So the narrative has changed from whether Namibia has oil or not. A few years ago, I recall when I was a young economist, we were trying to discover oil, and a lot of drilling happened, but then we could not really detect the oil. But now over the past, I would say 7-10 years, we know now Namibia has a lot of oil. The question is now, how can we get the oil out of the sea? And this oil is very deep under the sea. That's very important for people to know. The oil is not like when you drill and you get the oil. The oil is actually, you have a lot of water, almost 2 kilometers of water, if not more. And then after that, you need another 2 kilometers before you get the oil. And so the oil is also trapped in different pockets. It's not in a single reservoir where the oil can come out. So the oil in story in Namibia is gonna work. The second message I have is to manage the expectations. Just because we know that we have a lot of oil doesn't mean that the oil will flow today. It will take time for people and the companies that are here to take out the oil. They need to find technical solutions on how to get out the oil. What's also making that job complicated is the oil is mixed with gas. So it's not just oil, there's gas as well. In the case of Namibia, we have discovered gas long ago, the Kudu gas, but it takes time to develop that. So after you have a technical solution, you also then need to have financial institutions that will come in that will say, we are going to finance. We need to have financial closure to get the oil out of Namibia. Now, the second question that you have asked is, how will it transform Namibia? So if the oil comes, it has the potential to transform Namibia in a very big time. Because firstly, we will be able to buffer up our revenue. As you know, that Namibia's debt has increased steadily over time. Currently, our debt is at about 65% of GDP. But with oil coming, we can actually now have more revenue, and that revenue can be used to transform Namibia. But that requires then that we need to have a plan to say, how are we going to use the oil revenue to transform Namibia? Are we going to build more schools, more hospitals? Are we going to spend the money on things that are maybe nice to have but not necessary to have? So we need to have that big plan to say that when the oil revenue comes, we are going to use it in a responsible manner. And what's very important is we must know that oil is a commodity. It's a resource that's non-renewable. So we also have to think of future generations. So part of the oil revenue must go into the sovereign wealth fund. So luckily Namibia has been had foresight, and about 3 or 4 years ago started the Welwitschia Sovereign Wealth Fund. So some of this oil money must be put in that oil fund so that future generations can also benefit from the oil money. There's also the question is that now that we're entering this transition in economies, we are moving from a carbon-based global economy to an economy that's less dependent on carbon. So the question is also that is Namibia now going to develop a carbon-based economy or not? I think we need to have that mix, and the carbon-based fuels will be there for the global economy for a long time to come. I can't say exactly how long, but at least it will be for the next 20, 30 years. So we can use that opportunity to extract the oil and to transform Namibia and actually replace the oil into other assets. I like what Dubai, for example, has done. You know, when they extracted the oil, they transformed the oil into financial assets. They've built up a tourism industry. They've actually built up all sorts of industries from the oil. So we must use the oil not just to benefit the pockets of people today, but to think of generations to come. And also we must know that the oil will not be there for always. So I think firstly, when it comes to oil is a commodity, and oil is linked to what we call the extractive industries. So it's very important for countries like Namibia to have strong institutions to ensure that the oil money is not misappropriated. So we are very fortunate in Namibia that we actually have strong institutions. So it puts us on a good foothold to ensure that when the oil money comes, that it will be utilized to the benefits of the Namibian people. Secondly, we also have to be very open then. We have to be very open on how we are going to utilize the oil money. So transparency will be critical. If people are starting to wonder what is happening to the oil money, then it will be a problem. Thirdly, when the oil money comes, we may, as a nation, we might forget about other important industries, and that's not going to be good for the long run. So we should actually treat the oil money as if it's not there, and simultaneously also develop other industries. In particular, we have to develop our agriculture, agro-processing, because that will create jobs, actually more jobs than oil. But we can use the oil money to accelerate our efforts to develop other industries that are critical for Namibia's development. Manufacturing is critical, our services industry is critical. So I think we have to have a clear plan to say that when the oil materializes and the revenue comes, that money is deployed to the best interest of the Namibians. So here I like the example of Botswana. When Botswana started off as a new country, they discovered a lot of diamonds. And what the Botswana government did that time, they actually said that the revenue from diamonds will not go into operational expenses. It will only go into investment. But they made two exceptions. They said investment is also if it's in education and in health. So if the oil money comes, I will suggest that we put the oil money only into investment including education and health. All of the other oil money we have to save for future generations. So I think it comes back again to the question that I said about transparency. So when we have revenue from oil, I think we should try to ring fence the revenue from oil so that it's not part of the normal revenue that we collect. And then we say from this oil revenue, a portion of it will go for education, a portion of it will go for this. And then we report on it. So we have to bring in that transparency. But the moment if the oil money is just going into the big pool of revenue, we may actually not see what's happening to the oil money. One example I have is Dep Marine and Namdeb. They have done a lot. You know, it's actually an amazing story. There's a lot that has happened because of the diamonds that we've had. But sometimes it's difficult to account. And people say, okay, but we've had the diamonds, but what happened to it? But we've used the budget in the past to allocate and to invest in sectors like health, education, because of revenue that we got from diamonds and from mining. But we just have to see how we can introduce more transparency so that people actually have confidence to see that this money from oil, we know it has been utilized in that manner.
How important is it for Namibia to develop strong?
So firstly, I must commend government for having strong fiscal frameworks. You know, when the Ministry of Finance was set up, there was already some elements of prudence that were introduced. We have certain fiscal rules that we try to adhere to as Namibia. For example, I know that the Ministry of Finance would not like to spend more than a certain percentage of GDP. We have the ability to collect revenue. That's very important. Most of the revenue that we collect is actually domestic revenue. There's SACO, which is international trade, but we are not very dependent on handouts from the international community. So Namibia has a very, in my view, a robust fiscal framework. Over the past years, we've been tested because of the economic downturn and then COVID, and our debt to GDP shot up to almost 65%. But in the past, we actually had a debt rule that said we should not exceed our debt by more than 35% of GDP. We are credit-worthy as a nation. So I think Namibia is already having all the key ingredients from a fiscal perspective if oil money starts to come in, that I think there should be confidence that we should be able to make the best of the oil money. So now lessons that can be learned, you know, there are countries like Norway, for example. I think Norway is one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds. We can look at Norway experience, but we can also look at the experience of countries that didn't do well. We must not only learn from best experiences, but we can also learn from countries where things didn't work and they try to avoid those pitfalls. So for me, I will look at a wide range of countries. I will start first maybe with Norway. The new kid on the block is also in Latin America, Guinea. Not Guinea, I forgot the name now. But I think we can look at it. But beyond that, we don't only have to look at lessons from oil and gas. We have to look at lessons from countries that had an abundance of a certain type of resource. It could be diamonds, it could be timber, it could be something else. And then see how did they manage that resource for the benefit of current and future generations. what's important for me is really we need to consider future generations, because future generations must benefit from this resource. It's not the current generation. They say when you plant a tree, you are not going to sit under the tree, but your grandchildren may sit under the tree. So we have to use this resource so that our grandchildren can one day sit under the tree. I'm very optimistic about the outlook of Namibia. We've gone through a deep economic downturn. In fact, I call it a double whammy, because we had an economic downturn because of SACCO revenue that dried up and other shocks, and also over-reliance on government expenditure. And then just as the economy was recovering, COVID came. So we had a really two deep downturns, but I think we are through the worst now. I believe that we are in a position now as a country. So here, what's important is that we have to use the budget to develop Namibia. So a lot of the oil revenue will go into the budget, into the fiscus. And it's important then to have, as I said before, to have a clear plan how we can then unlock other industries through the oil money. We also have to look at, oil it's not only the oil that we will get, but from the oil we can also do some value addition to some of the oil products that we have. So we need to understand the value chain of the oil and gas industry. And we need to develop those critical skills to benefit optimally from the oil and gas industry and from the inflows that will come. But beyond that, we need to utilize some of the oil money to stimulate other industries that we don't have the capacity to stimulate now, because we don't have the financial means or the financial muscle to do so. Most important, I think, if we use the oil and gas money to develop our human assets, that will go a long way in transforming Namibia. The most important factor in economic development is actually not resources or commodities. The most important factor in development is your human asset. So if we can use the oil money to develop our human assets and to train Namibians not only in oil and gas, but to train them in all sectors of the future economy. We need to look at what are going to be the jobs of the future. And if this oil money comes, we develop our Namibians to be able to participate in the jobs of the future. Jobs of the future, for example, includes, we speak of the fourth industrial revolution, we speak of artificial intelligence, robotics, etc., etc. So those are some of the funds that we can use actually to develop top-class Namibians that will not only contribute to the development of Namibia, but also will contribute to the development of the continent at large.